No contact, everybody talks about it like it's the magic bullet. Like the second you go silent, he'll suddenly wake up and realize what he lost. But let's be real, that's not enough. Silence alone doesn't create impact. Silence doesn't create emotion. What makes him feel it is what you do during that silence. That's the real difference. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to turn no contact into something he can't ignore. A lot of people misunderstand the whole no contact idea. They treat it like it's the entire strategy. Like, oh, if I just stop talking, if I just cut him off, that's all I need to do. He'll come crawling back. But that's where most people get stuck, because silence by itself is just silence. It's like hanging up the phone and waiting for magic to happen. Nothing changes unless something shifts inside you during that time. No contact is not the finish line. It's just the foundation you build from. Think about it like this. Imagine you're building a house. The foundation matters, right? If you don't pour the concrete, you don't have a structure to stand on. But if all you have is the foundation, and you never build the walls, never put a roof on it, never make it a home, what good is it? That's exactly what happens with no contact. It gives you the base, it gives you stability, but if you don't use that time to actually build yourself, your confidence, your energy, then the silence is just empty space. And here's the thing, silence doesn't automatically make him feel anything. You're not going to disappear for 2 weeks, and suddenly he wakes up in the middle of the night panicked, thinking about you. What actually makes him feel something is the shift in energy that happens while you're in no contact. Because when you're not chasing, not texting, not filling his inbox with explanations and emotions, that's when the mirror flips. That's when he starts to notice the difference between when he had you right there and when he doesn't anymore. But if your silence is full of waiting, checking your phone, scrolling his social media, wondering if he's going to text, guess what? That energy leaks. Even if you're not speaking, your mindset is still tied to him, and he doesn't feel the absence the way you want him to. No contact works when you treat it as a reset button, not as punishment. You're not doing this to make him suffer. You're doing this to reclaim your own space, your own clarity, your own worth. And let me be clear, this is not about pretending you don't care. It's not about playing some cold, heartless game. It's about realizing that if you don't take your energy back, you'll stay stuck in this invisible tug of war where he controls the rhythm and you're left waiting on his next move. That's not power. That's dependency disguised as strategy. No contact is powerful when you use it to step back and breathe. When you stop reacting to his absence and start acting on your own presence. You start asking yourself different questions. What do I want right now? What makes me feel alive? What parts of me did I ignore when I was pouring all my attention into him? That's where the real transformation begins. Because the truth is, silence by itself doesn't change how he sees you. But silence paired with growth, silence paired with strength, silence paired with you shining in ways he didn't even expect. That's when no contact turns into impact. That's when he looks at the space you've created and feels the difference. He feels what it's like to not have access to you. And that right there is the whole point. No contact is not the end. It's just the beginning. So once you understand that no contact is only the foundation, the next step is shifting that energy back to you. Because let's be real, when you've been giving and giving in a relationship, your energy is usually wrapped up in him. What he's thinking, what he's doing, whether he notices, whether he cares. And when you go no contact, you suddenly have all this space. The mistake most people make is leaving that space empty. And when it's empty, your mind goes right back to obsessing over him. But when you fill that space with you, that's where everything changes. Here's what I mean. Think about when you first met. What made him attracted to you? It wasn't because you were sitting around waiting for somebody to notice you. It wasn't because your life was on pause. It was because you were living, you had energy, you had something that drew him in. That's what confidence actually looks like. Not arrogance, not pretending to not care, but this quiet, steady focus on yourself that says, I know who I am, and I'm building something whether you're here or not. And the funny thing is, that shift doesn't just affect him, it affects you. When you start taking care of yourself physically, when you invest in your health, when you get up and move your body, suddenly your mind starts clearing. When you start pursuing things you enjoy, your work, your passions, your friendships, you start to remember, oh, I'm more than what this relationship made me feel like. That's the energy shift that no contact is supposed to create. Now, here's the part most people overlook. He can feel this shift even if you never say a word. You don't have to post selfies every hour or broadcast your every move online. True energy is invisible, but it's felt. If he ever checks in, if his friends see you, if your paths cross, the vibe is completely different. You're not heavy, you're not desperate, you're not pulling on him with invisible strings. You're light. You're grounded. And that right there makes him curious. But let me flip it for a second. Imagine doing no contact and spending the whole time sitting around, scrolling his page, analyzing every detail of his life. Do you know what happens? You look the same, you feel the same, your energy doesn't change. And when nothing changes, he feels no loss. That's why people say, no contact didn't work for me. It's not that it doesn't work. It's that nothing shifted during it. This is why I tell people, don't think of no contact as what you're taking away from him. Think of it as what you're giving back to yourself. You're reclaiming your mornings, your thoughts, your confidence. You're not punishing him, you're empowering you. And when that happens, the balance of the entire situation flips. Because whether he realizes it or not, he feels the absence not just of your presence, but of the access to your energy. And energy is what he was drawn to in the first place. So yes, silence can make him notice. But silence combined with you thriving, silence combined with you glowing in ways he didn't expect, that's the moment he feels it in his gut. Because deep down, he knows your world is moving, and it's moving without him. And that's exactly where your power comes back. One of the most powerful things you can create during no contact is something I call invisible presence. And what I mean by that is this: you don't have to be in someone's face, constantly reminding them of your existence for them to feel you. Sometimes the most impactful presence is the one that happens when you're not even around. It's that quiet realization they get when they notice the space you left behind. Think about it like a song. When the music stops, what do you notice? The silence, the absence. The space that used to be filled with sound is suddenly empty, and that emptiness is what makes you aware of the music you were just listening to. That's exactly how it works with people. When you were always available, always answering, always giving, he got used to the rhythm of your presence. He might not have even appreciated it fully, because it was constant. But when that presence is suddenly gone, it's the silence that makes him notice. Now, here's the difference between just disappearing and creating invisible presence. If you just vanish without growth, it feels like nothing. It's like a light that burned out and no one notices because the room was already dim. But when you pull back while building yourself up, while leveling up in ways he doesn't expect, that's when the absence speaks volumes. He's not hearing from you, but he's feeling the contrast. He's noticing the way other people respond to you. He's noticing the energy that you've taken back, and he's noticing the gap where your presence used to be. And this is what really gets inside his head. Because he doesn't have the comfort of access anymore. He doesn't get to pick up his phone and hear your voice whenever he wants. But at the same time, he's sensing that you're doing better, that you're not stuck, that you're actually thriving without him. That paradox, that tension between not having you and still feeling you, that's what creates invisible presence. It's like walking past a restaurant and smelling the food even though you can't go inside. You're not sitting at the table, but your senses are triggered. You feel something. That's what you want him to feel when you're gone. Not that you're punishing him, not that you're ignoring him just to get a reaction, but that your absence carries weight. And that weight only comes when your presence was valuable in the first place, and now it's withdrawn in a way that makes him stop and notice. Here's what most people do wrong. They break the silence too quickly because they panic. They think, if I don't remind him I'm here, he's going to forget about me. But the truth is, if you were ever truly present in his life, he won't forget. He might try to distract himself, he might pretend he's unaffected, but eventually, the absence catches up. The difference is whether that absence feels like freedom or whether it feels like loss. And that's determined by what you do during no contact. If he looks at your life and sees you sitting still, sees no change, no growth, then your absence feels like nothing more than space. But if he sees you glowing, even indirectly, then that absence feels heavy. It feels like a loss. It creates a pull he can't explain, because you're not chasing, you're not calling, you're not trying. You're simply not there. And that's what makes your presence louder than ever. That's how you create invisible presence. Here's where a lot of people get it twisted. They think no contact means they have to completely disappear off the face of the earth. Like, I can't post anything, I can't live my life, I just have to sit here in silence and wait. That's not what creates impact. You don't have to break no contact to send a message, and you don't have to chase to get noticed. What actually speaks the loudest are the subtle signals. The little things that show, without you saying a word, that your life is moving forward, and it's moving in a direction he no longer has access to. Think about it like this. When someone's watching from the outside, they don't need a whole speech from you to understand what's happening. They just pick up on the vibe. They see how you carry yourself. They notice if your energy is lighter, if you're out with friends, if you're smiling more. You don't have to broadcast it like, look at me, I'm doing amazing without you. That comes across as forced. What makes it powerful is when it's natural, when the small changes in your life quietly reflect growth. Maybe it's posting a picture of you out doing something fun, not directed at him, not about him, but simply showing you living. Maybe it's showing up with a new style, new energy, new habits. These little shifts are like breadcrumbs, and if he happens to notice, they trigger a thought. Wait a second, she's not stuck. She's not chasing. She's actually doing better. And that thought plants a seed that grows bigger the longer you keep it consistent. Now, let's be honest here. People can feel when you're doing something just to get a reaction. They can sense when it's forced. That's why subtlety matters. If you're posting 10 selfies a day just to make sure he sees you, it doesn't come across as strength. It comes across as trying too hard. But if your growth is genuine, if you're actually pouring into yourself, those signals come across naturally. They're effortless, and that effortlessness is what makes them powerful. You don't need to announce to the world, I've leveled up. You just quietly live it, and it speaks for itself. It's like when someone changes their energy after going through something. Maybe they carry themselves with more confidence. Maybe they walk in a room differently. People notice without you having to say a word. That's the effect you want to create. The beauty of subtle signals is that they don't break no contact, but they still send a message. And the message is clear. I'm not waiting. I'm not chasing. I'm building. That's what hits. That's what makes someone who thought you'd always be around start second, guessing, because he can't reach you, but he can feel that your life is moving, and he's no longer part of the picture. And let me tell you something, sometimes it's not even about him seeing it directly. Sometimes it's about the energy shift that makes other people notice, and word gets back to him. Or maybe he doesn't see it right away, but down the line when your paths cross, he feels the difference instantly. Either way, those subtle signals make the silence louder, because silence on its own can be ignored, but silence paired with undeniable signs of growth, that's impossible to miss. When you step back and go no contact, one of the most important things you have to do is control the narrative inside your own head. Because here's the truth. Most people don't break no contact because they miss him so much. They break it because of the story they keep telling themselves while they're silent. That little voice says, "What if he's forgetting me? What if he's moved on? What if I don't matter anymore?" And if you let that narrative run wild, it drives you straight back into reaching out, and suddenly all the progress you've made disappears. The story you tell yourself is everything. If your story is, "I'm waiting for him, I'm hoping he'll notice, I need him to validate me," then your silence isn't power, it's desperation in disguise. But if your story is, "I'm the main character here, my life is moving, and I'm building something real whether he's in it or not," then your silence becomes strength. It becomes magnetic, because think about it, people are naturally drawn to those who live like they're the center of their own world, not someone else's. That doesn't mean being selfish. It means having direction. It means having an identity that isn't defined by who's texting you back or who isn't. And that's exactly what you have to anchor yourself in during no contact. You've got to stop asking, "What is he thinking about me right now?" and start asking, "What do I want to build for me right now?" That's how you take back control of the narrative. Because otherwise, your silence just becomes waiting, and waiting is passive. It keeps you stuck in his orbit, measuring your worth by whether he notices you're gone. Here's something powerful to remember. When you stop making him the main character, that's usually when he starts paying attention. When your energy is no longer centered on him, it shifts the balance. Suddenly he's not being fed by your constant attention, and instead he's left to wonder. Why does it feel different? Why isn't she chasing? Why isn't she reaching out? That shift doesn't happen when you're focused on what he's doing. It happens when you rewrite the story you're living. And this isn't just about attraction, it's about freedom. Because once you really get this, you realize no contact isn't even about him anymore. It's about you creating space to stop obsessing, to stop spiraling, to stop defining yourself through someone else's actions. It's about pulling your energy back into your own lane and remembering that you have a life, goals, passions, and people who matter outside of him. When you live from that place, your presence feels completely different. You're lighter. You're stronger. You're not carrying around this invisible weight of, "Does he want me? Does he miss me?" And that's exactly what makes him feel it more. Because contrast is everything. When he knew you, maybe you were always available, always invested, always present. But when he sees you now, focused on yourself, not chasing, not waiting, the difference is undeniable. And that's the irony. The less you make it about him, the more he starts to notice. The moment you stop orbiting his world is the moment he starts to realize the gravity of losing yours. That's how you control the narrative within yourself. At the end of the day, what makes him truly feel it is contrast. People don't miss what stays the same. They miss what's different. They miss what they can no longer reach, what they no longer have access to. If he had your constant attention before, if he had your energy, your time, your presence, and now he doesn't, that shift is what hits him. That's what creates the feeling of loss. See, when you were there, when you were always available, he might not have valued it. Because people rarely value what they assume will always be around. But when the dynamic changes, when he goes from having you close to not having you at all, that gap is felt in a very real way. It's not the silence alone that makes him feel it. It's the difference between how things were and how they are now. Think about your own life. Have you ever had something you didn't fully appreciate until it was gone? Maybe it was a friendship, maybe it was a routine, maybe it was even just a habit that gave you comfort. At the time, you didn't think much of it, but the second it disappeared, you felt the void. That's exactly what happens here. The contrast wakes him up, and the stronger the contrast, the deeper the impact. If you were giving him all of your attention before, then pulling that attention back is powerful. If you were investing in him constantly, then redirecting that energy into yourself makes the absence unmistakable. He can't ignore it because the difference is staring him in the face. He's not just losing the words, he's losing the energy, the light, the part of you that made his world better. And the more you focus on yourself, the brighter that light becomes outside of him, which only sharpens the contrast of not being able to have it anymore. Here's the beauty of it. You don't have to announce anything. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to scream, "Look what you're missing." The contrast does the work for you. He remembers what it was like when he had you close, and he sees what life looks like without you now. That difference doesn't need an explanation. It's felt. It's undeniable. And this is why growth during no contact is so important. Because if nothing changes in you, the contrast is weak. He doesn't feel a loss, he feels a pause. But if you change, if you elevate, if you glow in ways that are impossible to miss, that pause turns into a permanent shift in how he sees you. He realizes that what he once had isn't just gone, it's evolved into something even greater, and he no longer has access to it. That's when the weight of loss really settles in. So don't think of no contact as just silence. Think of it as the space that creates contrast. It's the line drawn between who you were when he had you and who you are becoming without him. That's what makes him feel it in his chest. That's what creates the pull. And that's what makes your absence impossible to ignore. Because at the end of it all, he doesn't just feel your silence. He feels the difference.